At Star's abode. Star. My quiet meditation is interrupted by the appearance of both meddlesome fairies, Ember and Flix. They look at each other warily but not with the kind of bluster as before. Both apparently sizing each other up to get a sense of their worth. It is as if they have never met. How delightful. I smile at them. Flix addresses me first. And for the first time, I see Ember acquiesce to the fairy prince. My world has toppled. I have some magic to undo Fairy Star. You don't say. I say. I am still sounding like Ember, so there is still indeed magic to be undone. I look over to her, but she is still towing the line, so unusual. Flix smiles sheepishly. Yes, in fact I was the culprit that turned the limo into a perfect carriage. That might be so, but did you fail to see that the midnight hour just turned it back into a limo? I ask. I undid all of that, found the glass slipper and took that instead. I have an idea, Ember pipes up. We both look in her direction. She clears her throat while wringing her hands and says in the most logical tones I have ever heard, we need to go back to the root cause. The first spell. We need to rewind the night to unravel our deeds. Excellent suggestion, Flix replies, smiling at Ember in the most friendly manner I have ever seen on his handsome face. I did the limo, I say. Then the dress. Afterward, I did the combat shoes, the flippers, and Ember finally did the glass slippers. Yes, they were so beautiful. My best work yet, exclaims Ember. Flix chuckles. For a moment a wisp of a memory tugs at me. But it is lost in the next thing that Ember says. And then Prince Flix changed the limo into a proper carriage. Flix looks at Ember stunned. I did. Why would I do that? I think you were already suffering the consequences of meddling magic. Although, if you were the last one to transform something, why would the effects hit you first? I interject. Again, I feel slightly dizzy and a memory hits me and dissipates rapidly enough that I cannot make any sense of it. Well, that can only mean that Prince Flix must have done something before I made the glass slippers. She says it so politely and unlike her fiery disposition, that I feel that I am losing both my memory and my sister at the same time. Flix looks at both of us. Him mind whirling. Working as rapidly as the consequence magic would allow. But he comes up with nothing. So, I suggest that we all go back to the manor house and begin to undo our magic while Flix contemplates on what he did. Limo. Check. Undone. Would you believe it became an attraction for people from far and wide? In only one day. I guess 20th century paraphernalia would really cause a stir in this day and age. Dress. Check. Undone. Although I suspect that Elle would be sad about that even though her 3 hags would probably destroy it. Luckily for her, stepmother and ugly daughters are down because they did not make a match with the prince. Shoes, well, one of them anyway. Check. Undone. Ember is quite sad to see this work of fine art vanish into thin air. She asked us to allow her to examine it in detail before doing away with it so she could create one just like it just for art. Who knew she would be this emotional about a crystal shoe? Hopefully, her new disposition may help her to realize that each of us is an epicenter of the universe but only uniquely to us. As fairies, we do good works to make sure we do not let selfish intentions rule the day. Well, I think we undid everything we discussed, I say. Yes, but I think there is more, and Prince Flix is key, says Ember. I cannot seem to remember. All I know is that I have an ache right here in my chest, says Flix. He rubs his heart. Then he seems to get lost in thought. We all fall silent. Then Ember suddenly berates him, "Oh come on Flix. You were spying on us and chuckling to your bony self." Flix glares at her. At her impudence. Ember is back. Could the consequences of her meddling magic be righted? Then it dawns on me. Flix, I seem to remember sounding like Ember both in my mind and as I did my magic. All fire and bluster, very uncharacteristic, very meddled with. It bothered me because I have never behaved quite as boldly with any of my charges before. It was as though we switched something between us. And Ember seemed to be far less obnoxious than usual. Does that jog your memory, Flix? Ember bristles. Yeah, Flix, what did your chuckling mean? Then she glares at me, obnoxious. Really, Star? I smile, probably like a benevolent old fairy seeing her work come to its right conclusion. It does not hurt for the two of them to face their darker traits head-on, does it? Flix looks to both of us with a sudden dawning on his handsome face. We look at him for an explanation, but he ignores us and rapidly mouths some fairy words. He did it all so fast that we could not understand any bit of it. In that instant he falls to his knees as each of the fairy council members appear and form a circle around us. Ilios speaks first. Prince Flix. Do you accept the cost of your actions? Flix nods. I accept. My place in the council will go to my younger brother when he passes your tests. Ilios bobs his head slowly. The ruling king would never have been placed in the council. But the ruler will always be privy to the matters that affect our realm. Flix inclines his head again. Understood. It was the test of a ruler rather than a counselor. He is released from the invisible chains and then he stands. A royal decree. Star. With all of the magical meddling sorted out, I thought that we would have concluded our misadventure. How wrong can a fairy be? How frustrated as well. Neither my ward nor my sister have gotten the man they are destined for, and I am at the heart of it all. I sit contemplating what Helios said. At the heart of our interventions is the will to do good. So, you can well imagine that I feel I have done no such thing if all the loose ends seem to be producing other very loose ends. Ember flashes into my house. Star, did you hear? There is to be a search for the princess that captured the heart of the prince. A delegation will soon arrive at Elle's home. We must be on our way. I look at Ember. She is still under my enchantment, as is Flix. They both do not mention Elle or the earthly prince these days, and they do not seem to be besotted by them. My worry is that they do not look at each other in the same besotted way they did before. That is the enchantment working both ways, and I just cannot seem to find a trigger to break the four of them apart so that each couple finds their other half. Well, Star, stop contemplating. We have to go, you still have work to do. We get to the house just as the delegation arrives. By royal decree, His Majesty requests that each unmarried girl of the house be presented to this delegation to undergo a test. Elle's stepmother, a cunning woman, sees her chance to secure more status and calls her ugly daughters down. Elle she locks in the attic. As each one of them presents herself, the delegation requests that she remove her shoes. Odd, I know. That is when Ember and I see one of Elle's crystal shoes. As we watch and listen, we learn that Elle lost both of her shoes that night, and one of them was secured by the prince, who mistakenly thinks that his love, Princess Ember, was wearing that shoe. I look at Ember, who seems to be coming out of a fog herself. But I made that shoe for Elle, it was not mine. Where is she anyway, Star? As Ember asks that, I hear Elle's stepmother say, No, there are no other girls in this house. Ember flies into action. Oh no, you don't. Before I know it, she is Snow White again and calling for Elle. Hello, I am looking for my friend Elle. Elle, you say? Says the royal delegate. Yes, Elle Winterbourne, daughter of George. She lives here. Elle's stepmother and her daughters bar the door. There is no one by that name living here. And since Elle is locked in the attic, she cannot prove them wrong. I begin a furious search of the windows to see where she is, and when I get to the attic, I see that Flix has opened the attic door for Elle and tells her to use the back door to leave the house. As she does, one of the guards sees her and asks her if she is Elle. He then takes her to the royal delegate for her test. Elle tries on the shoe, it fits and then in a puff, disappears. The royal delegate and guards are flummoxed. What do? They must take her to the palace. The shoe fit her. Ember smiles. Suddenly she looks free. Her magic is now completely undone. But my mission is still unfinished, so we too go to the palace to see what will happen with Elle and the prince. At the palace, star-crossed. Star. The delegation arrives and reports to the king that they have found the princess. The king summons the prince and requests that the shoe be placed on Elle's foot to show the prince that she is indeed that person he was looking for. The delegate stutters when he explains to the king and the prince exactly what just happened. Ahem, your majesty, prince. We of the delegation were presented with the girl called Elle Winterbourne. We placed the crystal shoe on her foot and it fit. However, the moment we tried to remove it so that we could return, the shoe disappeared. Silence. The king looked about to pop with rage. What do you mean, disappeared? The shoe should be tried on in front of the prince as proof. Both king and prince appeared deeply disappointed. The delegate too. Announcing, Prince Felix of Flynn and Princess Ember of Cole, a footman at the door says loudly. Everyone in the room turns, including me. I had no idea my sister and Flix would intervene again. I thought they learned their lesson. I am stunned, however, when I take a good look at the two. They are presenting themselves in full royal fairy regalia, and between them they hold a present. Flix speaks up first. Your Majesty, Prince, Elle, we understand there is cause for celebration and we have a special gift for you. You, says the prince as he looks directly at Ember. You, says Elle breathlessly as she looks at Flix. Ember and Flix smile at Elle and the prince and both repeat, you. Elle and the prince step closer, and as the two couples make a cross with the gift at the center, Flix and Ember open the lid, revealing the crystal shoe that Ember crafted after undoing her magic on the one shoe in her possession after the ball. The prince removes the shoe and places it on Elle's foot, proving that Elle was indeed wearing the shoe to the ball. They look at each other, smitten as the first moment that they had laid eyes on each other before the meddlesome fairies made an appearance. Flix smiles. So does Ember. Their meddling is now completely undone and replaced with a gift made with love. They look at each other, and as they smile, a stream of stars engulfs them, taking them away to the fairy kingdom. And me? Well, I smiled too. My work was complete. The end.